I heard a click and suddenly I heard a bang and I felt a pain in my chest. But I'm gurgling, I feel blood spitting out of my mouth. They went to get my wife Susan and they told her it's 50-50 where I'd get through the night.
Charlotte Daly with MailSport Boxing. I'm joined by Frank Warren. Thank you for inviting us into this amazing office. My first time being here. How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Yeah, I'm not bad, not bad. Well, we wanted to come and do a bit of a sit down with you because we obviously hear a lot from you all the time, but we don't necessarily get to see the ins and outs of you as this person that puts on all these amazing shows. You've never been a boxer yourself, you've always been on kind of the promotional side, but one of your friends actually said once that you two got into a fight and you beat him up. He said that you were a little terrier and they're a bit of a hooligan, so we know you've got it in you. How come you never went into boxing?
He tells stories. No, I never. Well, first of all, to be a boxer, you've got to have discipline. And at a young age, that's something that I would not have been doing. I've got a couple of relations who boxed, but that wasn't for me. When I was younger, I was always out and about. I mean, I was, I used to like going out. I used to like going to clubs. I love music, so that doesn't work together being a boxer. I come from obviously a working class background. I lived on the council estate, quite a tough area, a very tough area to be honest, but it was enjoyable, and that's all I knew. That's what you grew up with, and you grew up within an environment. I was really spoilt as a kid. My grandparents. I was the eldest boy on one side, and I was the eldest grandchild on the other, and they used to spoil me rotten. I used to love hanging out with my grandmothers and my granddads. Mum and dad divorced. They had quite a tempestuous relationship, but again, it's what you know, isn't it? It's what the environment you're in. And I think because of that, I used to go out. I used to get out quite a bit. As I say, when I was younger. I left school when I was 14 and a half. I went to a grammar school. I passed my 11 plus. Probably the main reason I left school is because I discovered girls. So and then we used to bunk off school, hang out with these girls and whatever. And my mum and dad, probably took advantage of the fact that they had split up. And that's what happened.
You said at the start there that you didn't have the kind of focus or commitment to be a boxer. But you did show early on that you had the kind of business acumen and the mindset for promoting and things like that, because you were about 11 years old when you took charge of a football team, didn't you?
Yeah.
You used to have, I think it was meetings above a pub when you were probably meant to be in bed. So, I mean, you showed that side from early on.
Yeah, I mean, we used to have games between the various estates that one where I used to live and one where I moved to, and various other people. And then there was the Regent's Park Sunday League, which obviously was in Regent's Park, and I lived in Priory Green, so our team was called Priory, and we got into the league, and I was the manager. I was the manager of the team, and I can remember going along to this pub. They used to have the meetings above this pub in Finsbury Park, and. And there was all these sort of guys who spent time coaching kids and that, and there was me, and I'm sitting there, and it was quite. I suppose looking at them, they must have thought, he's precocious. I won't say the second word, but who is this kid?
Obviously, with promoting itself, you didn't initially get into that. You had a few other jobs first, being a solicitor, and ran pubs and clubs and whatnot. You said about getting sidetracked by women and the nights out. Do you have any good night out stories that you can tell us?
No, no. I mean, we used to. I was quite lucky. I mean, I was lucky enough. I always managed to earn money. By hook or by crook, I'd make money. As you mentioned, through various enterprises that I got involved with, and I was always down clubs.
So is that where the passion for music started? Because I know that you've got even things around this office from memorabilia from amazing stars. Was it all started from there?
Yeah, I mean, where the environment I grew up in, probably a lot of working class kids grew up in, was that you get your money, and I suppose we were the sort of post generation. Our parents we were the kids from, I was born in 52, 7 years after the Second World War. So that generation were probably the first generation to be living in peaceful times when you look at all that was going on. And as a working class kid, it was music, it was clothes, and it was going out, and that was it. And then, that was what we all did. We all lived, you literally did live for the weekend, because like Friday, get yourself home, bath, get yourself sorted out on the Friday night, and it was just a fabulous, fabulous weekend. I mean, all my mates and that, and they're still friends of mine now. I still hang around with. We still meet up together. Yeah. And we had some unbelievably good times.
Well, you did get into promoting, and it was actually through a cousin, wasn't it? Because you went to his fight, you were in the corner, and it was when they were trying to make the rematch, I believe, and you piped up when potentially you shouldn't have at that time and said, we'll end up promoting this because I think we can do a better job at it.
That's exactly what happened. It was my uncle Bob, it was Lenny McLean, that's his nephew on my late Aunt Kathy, my late Uncle Bob now, on their side. And Lenny had a fight with Roy Shaw, which he lost. We went along as spectators to watch it, and it was anyway, it was crazy. I mean, he threw one punch, wobbled him, and then after that, never threw another punch. Went to the corner, put his arms up on the ropes, and just went to him. Come on, hit me on the chin, and then he slid down the ropes, knocked out. And they then made a second fight about 6 months later. And my uncle got Lenny in with Freddie Hill, who trained the Finnegan brothers, to train him. He had a proper trainer for the fight, and he trained for it. And come the week of the fight, there was no one to get in the corner with him. So my uncle and me were his cornermen. Yeah. Which I knew about corners was nothing.
Yeah, what was your job in the corner? Were you there?
Well, I think there was a thing about Lenny was going to, if he won the fight, he might have a problem, and that's why we got in the corner. That's why we went in the corner. Anyway, he won the fight, and then they were going to have the third fight, the rubber match, and as you just said, we went to the people who looked after Roy Shaw, who Lenny fought, to his office in the Haymarket, and they couldn't agree terms, and they offered him some stupid money. He's already beaten him, and making a name for himself, Lenny, on that circuit, and anyway, that's the offer, take it or leave it. And I piped up. My uncle was supposed to be talking, and I piped up. I was only a young kid, and I said to him, "Well, we'll give you that money, whatever they offer. We'll pay you it, give you a bit more than that. We're whatever." And then we said, "Well, we're promoting. Don't worry, don't need you." Anyway, that was the end of the meeting. All sort of like everyone's staring and looking and whatever. And we got outside, and my uncle said to me, "What'd you say that for? What's going on?" I said, "I don't know." And I really did done it. It was like a challenge.
Impulse.
Yeah, it was an impulsive thing because, you're telling us that's not how it's going to be. You're telling us what we're going to do. And that was it. And they were all older guys. These guys, a couple of them were quite what you'd call the chaps and whatever. And so that was that. And next minute we're booking the Rainbow Theatre, which used to be called the Finsbury Park Astoria, where I actually see Otis Redding a few years before this, quite a few years before this happened. That was it. We were up, and we were up. I don't know if we were running. And I always remember on the night of the show, about 6 o'clock in the evening, someone said, "We haven't got any boxing gloves." So we had no gloves. I mean, why haven't we got gloves? I mean, somebody should have brought them, and they didn't. And the next minute we phoned in a bloke called Ernie Foss, who used to run some shows at Hornsey Road, Baths. He was a friend of my family, and phoned him, and he came down with this big suitcase full of gloves and saved the evening, and that was it. We got a show on.
Wow. You obviously stepped in then to help your cousin in that situation. A lot of family members do try to get involved one way or another with boxers. It doesn't always turn out in the best way. We've seen that with the likes of Ricky Hatton and so on. What is it like as a promoter having these extra family members trying to kind of tag on to the boxers and influence them from outside?
It's hard. It's really hard work in some cases. Sometimes it's not always like that. I mean, sometimes it's a great influence if the family, if the family have the boxer's best interest, and you would always assume that they do because they're family. You think the family's going to look after each other. And there are times, like in Ricky's case, where I never had a row with Ricky or anything, our contract expired after the Costa Zoo fight, which was the best performance he had. I mean, he says that. We never had not a single crossword, and I know as a promoter I looked after him and done well, but I was dealing with his father, and his father was, was just being difficult and being greedy. And cut a long story short, I sometimes could be my own worst enemy. I can say, do you know what? Get on with it. Do your own thing. Walk away. I walked away from Naz. Yeah. I've done that, but that's not always a smart thing to do. But that's how it is. And looking back on it now, I don't do that. If there's a problem with a boxer, I tell the boxer, even if it's family. I suppose it's because how I was brought up. I don't want to get in between a father and a son, or a brother and the brother of the boxer. I don't want to be doing that. But that is not the way to be. If what I'm saying is what I feel is the truth, you may not like it, and it may not, in your opinion, be right. But at least I'm saying it to you, to your face, and the message isn't getting sent back how they want to present it to him. And that's what now. If there's any problems with anyone, I tell them straight. It's up to you. Take what advice you like, but this is what I'm saying, not what they're telling you. What I'm saying.
Just being like
and
upfront
and some of these families, it's been boxing's quite an intense business, but to fall out with your family, and it's invariably over money.
Money, yeah.
That's all it is. It's money. To fall out with them over that is such a shame, and it can destroy a family. And it has destroyed families. I'm not going to go into all the details, but quite a few of them, it's destroyed their relationships. And that's sad, and especially if it's like, if it's a parent or something. I always think to myself, when that parent dies, he's going to leave the money. What's he going to, the money that he's, whoever he may be has taken, what's he going to do? Leave it to the person you took it off of. It's crazy.
It's basically just giving back their own money.
You'd want the best for them and to look after them. And Ricky was a lovely fella. I mean, when he started off, I'm not, what I'm saying now is not about Ricky, but in Ricky's case, he was a lovely fella, and he worked very, very hard, and it's a shame that some of the problems he's had over the years and the effects it's had on him mentally and on his health and his, by his mental health and his well-being, it's been very, very sad, and I feel for him, and it was all unnecessary, and it's a great shame. And I genuinely hope that it can be repaired, if it can be repaired, because it's not just just falling out of the sun. It's your brothers, it's the grandchildren, and everything. And as I say, I've seen that a few times, and it's all about the money.
Money, yeah. You said about the fact that you kind of stopped working with Ricky and Naz, but they still say now that they regret walking away from you, and you parting ways with them as well. Do you look at it and kind of think, at the time, how did you take it? Was it quite personal when everything went on? And
Very.
Do you still find yourself as personally attached, or do you try and separate it now?
I'll tell you what I do. It's very personal, and as I say, I can be impulsive, and from a business point of view, I could have handled it better, which would have turned out better, me business-wise. But I wouldn't have felt good about myself. So I'd much rather say, you know what, you do better, goodbye. Like with Naz, I mean, we came back from America after the fight with McCullough, and we came back, and I never spoke to him again. I never rang him, never called him. By the way, he never called me, by the way, but never called. I had a crossword with him. We had a great relationship. And it was all very, it was really, really was, when I look back on it, sad, because he was a great fighter who was badly advised by his brothers, or his brother. Badly advised. I mean, here's this guy who come from, Sheffield, Yemeni ethnicity, and look what happened to him. And that was becoming like modern Britain. These guys are coming through, and the public, the British public as a whole, were taken on board as heroes. Younger generation loved him, and it all turned to tears. And his very last fight he had as a pro, he was getting booed out of the ring. What was that all about? He was a great great fighter, tremendous talent.
Just back to you getting into promoting. There was obviously the boxing cartel at the time when you were breaking in. What was that like, that whole experience? And because you were in your early 30s, that's a big task to take on, to try and break up the boxing cartel at that kind of age, especially.
I was 28 when I got my license from the board, but I'd been promoting for at least three or four years before that, and I didn't look at it. It's a bit like when we went into that, with Lenny into their office. It was, by then I'd actually formed another governing body called the National Boxing Council. The WBA were about to recognise us, and the Border Control offered me a licence. And I think they preferred me to be inside the tent rather than outside the tent. And I got in there, but they started, because they were the cartel and them were, prior to me getting involved, there was not a lot of decisions to be made. It was like boxing used to take place. It was on BBC television, which were the only channel that showed any domestic boxing. It was not live. It was on a Tuesday night. They showed it on the Wednesday and showed the highlights on Grandstand on the Saturday. And it was a nice little cosy setup. So in comes me, and I'm upsetting the apple cart a bit, because obviously I'm competitive. I'm offering boxers money, good money, some of them better money than they were getting, or their managers. And I ran my first show. I brought 2 Americans over. I was going to get it was going to be shown on an afternoon back in America. And cut a long story short, it didn't happen because the Border Control wouldn't let me have any television because I hadn't promoted enough shows, which I was unaware of that. It was a policy that they had. It wasn't in their rule book at the time. You weren't allowed live TV because that was banned, because they felt if you had live TV, then people wouldn't buy tickets.
Now, I think it was Mickey Duff's brother-in-law that originally got the document, but they needed the kind of official thing. How did that get out in the end? What was the story behind that?
What happened was there was a reporter on the News of the World, the then News of the World, who called me and he said, I've got this document. And I thought, what's all this about? And I thought it was like something that he was saying he had something that I'd done wrong, you know what I mean? I'm straight away, I'm thinking, what's this? And he went, no, we've got this document, and there's 4 names on it, and it puts them together as being a cartel and all that. Because up until then, everybody used to say they're all working together, but no one could prove it.
Yeah.
And for the fight, some of the fighters, they were unaware of what was going on with their careers. And cut a long story short, I had a meeting with him. He showed it to me, but they sort of redacted all the names off of it. So I'm looking at it, and he said, guess the names. I said, Mickey Duff, Jarvis Astaire, Mike Barrett, and I remember saying, Harry Levine. No, you got one of them wrong. They kept going on. I said, well, it's wrong, 20 questions. I've got 3 of them are right. I know that for a fact, because you just told me. So who? He went, it's not Harry Levine. He said, it's Terry Lawless. And Terry Lawless was not a promoter. He was a manager of quite, Frank Bruno, all those guys, some good fighters over the years. And so I thought, bloody hell, this is a dynamite. He said, we've got this bloke, he's staying in a hotel, because it's typical News of the World back then, he's in a hotel, he's ordering champagne, he's having the time of his life, and he wants to sell it. He said he asked for 10 grand, now he wants 20. So I said, what's his name? And he wouldn't tell me, who he was. Anyway, we arranged to have a meeting with him at this hotel. It was in the Waldorf, which had quite a dark bar area. And there's like some sofas and that, like with chairs we're sitting in. So we got there a little bit early, and Ernie Fossey came with me, and there was another bloke who was in the office. I said, listen, I want you to come along to Waldorf. I'm going to give you, just make out you're a solicitor, and you're going to look at this paper. I said, just, walk out.
Leg it.
So we're sitting around this table, and what I did, I remember we pushed the table up a bit so that where he was going to sit, he could just about squeeze in there. Right. So he sat down, and it turns out Ernie knew him. He said, you're Mickey Duff's brother-in-law. Yeah. And I'm like, what a nice fella he must be, stealing it off his brother-in-law and his sister, his sister's
and selling it
husband.
for 20 grand.
Anyway, now he wants 100 grand for it. And we're all sitting. I mean, this is going back to the sort of 80s and whatever. We have a few drinks, I said, well, I want to, I've seen it. I need my solicitor to verify it. So makes a phone.
Handed it over, yeah.
Makes a so anyway, the solicitor comes in. Bloke comes in with a briefcase. Mr. Warren, yeah, that's me. I said, oh, I can't remember. Mr. Smith can't come. He sent me along to look at it. So he puts the briefcase down. He's got his glass on, looks at it, takes it, walks. It's a bit dark here. Walks over to a light and out the door. So we're sitting there for about 2 minutes, and suddenly the penny drops, and where's he gone? He starts swearing away like, yeah, this is a stitch up and all this stuff. And then he grabs his briefcase and there's nothing in it, it's empty. He went, it goes off alarming. So we look at what's going on here. And then he gets, and as we were walking out, we're sort of getting to the edge of the bar, there's somebody with a camera taking photographs.
Yeah.
So I turned on him and I said, dude, you stitched us up here. I said, he looks at me, what have I done? I said, that's up. I said, you're with it. This is a get up. This is anyway. Get hold of him. And there was a toilet, and it was a Japanese tourist actually taking the photograph. And we pushed him into the pushed him in the toilet, and I've got him up the wall, and he's sort of standing on the wall like this. I said, I bet you're wired up, and I'm sort of searching. And me and Ernie we're trying to like anyway. We sod off, and we walked out, and that was it. Get back to the office, got the paper, looked at it, and I gave it to a fellow I used to know called Nick Pitt, who used to work, he was a sports writer, boxing writer for the Times. Gave it to him and they shared it with him, and they did this big expose. And I remember Jarvis they said they were going to sue the Times, the Sunday Times. Andrew Neil was the editor at the time. They were going to sue him because of it had been stolen from Mickey Duff's safe. That's what they were saying. Anyway, they didn't steal it, and I don't suppose we did. We just found it and give it to them. And cut a long story short, Andrew Neil really got peed off, and then and they made it a bigger story. So it went from being a sports story, it was on the front page.
Yeah.
It was quite a big thing at the time, and that opened the eyes up of a few fighters who felt, how can you be negotiating for us when you're involved in the profits of the promotion? And what happened with me, I remember Mickey Duff saying, but he's a promoter and manager, which I was. I said, yeah, but the fighters know that. The fighters are aware of that.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Well, you certainly had the bit between your teeth to make that change, and it was kind of, you were going to die trying, and you almost did die. You got shot. I mean, can you tell us about that experience? Because it was, you were arriving at one of your shows after being at the offices, and somebody shot you. How did that happen? What happened?
What happened? We built an arena called the London Arena in Docklands. It was a 12,500 multi-purpose arena, and I had a partner at the time called John Bottress, who was a solicitor, become a barrister, and we was just, a lot of people found us an odd combination. He was a double first at Trinity College in Cambridge, and there was me. I'd left school when I was 14 and a half, and I had a show at Barking Town Hall, and I don't think I'd ever been to Barking Town Hall before. And I'd advise you, don't go to Barking, it's a dangerous place. In the car, let's go and see him. I think Colin McMillan was fighting. Anyway, as we got there, my driver got lost. And eventually found it. As I was getting out of the car, and suddenly I heard a bang, and I thought it was a car backfiring, and I'm looking round. And I see this fella there, all masked up, and he's got his hand put, and I thought and I genuinely thought it was a joke to start with.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking, and then suddenly I heard a click, and then I realised that it wasn't a joke, but he was just too far away to close the gap. So if I went forward, if I'd have started going forward, so I'm trying to get around the other side of the car, and suddenly I heard a bang, another bang, and I felt a pain in my chest, and a pain in my arm. And what happened? The bullet went, because I was at an angle, it hit me here, but it went out the side into my arm. And anyway, I got round the side of the car, and I heard John say, "What the f*** are you doing?" Excuse my language. And he ran and jumped on him. which is quite a brave thing to do, and got him on the floor. Meanwhile, I'm standing there and I could feel like I feel a lot of gurgling because it went through my lung, and it's, I suppose, like feeling drowning with your blood. And then next minute I'm going, oh, and I can't, but I'm gurgling. I feel blood spitting out my mouth, and next minute I'm sort of on one knee. And I remember an old fighter who's a cab driver called Gary Nichols put it for, "Are you all right, Frank?" I said, "What does it look like?" And then I went down. A couple of doctors came out from the border control, and one of them said, the doctor said, "Have you got a handkerchief?" And I'm like, and I had a hanky in my pocket, got it, and I'm holding a hanky on where it went in, but the pain was here because I didn't know it'd come out. I just, and then my uncle, my dad were there, and they came out. They came as well, and they're all worried. And next minute they said, "Right, let's got to get you to the hospital," but the ambulances were on strike, so they put me in the back of a paddy wagon in an old police van, and in the back of that, and I can remember lying on the floor in the back of this van, and he started doing a 3-point turn, but he was bumping up the pavement. I'm going, oh, and I'm feeling pain, and the next minute we're off, and hear all this, this thing, the sirens going, and they took me to the appropriately named Shooters Hill Hospital over in South London, went through the tunnel, and that was it. How
close was it? If you were a step to your left, how detrimental could it have been?
It was close anyway, because they went to get my wife Susan. They went to my house, the police, and she's opened the door, see the police, they'd frightened the life out of her. So you get to the hospital and told her what happened, and they told her it's 50-50 where I'd get through the night. And anyway, I did get through the night, and that was it.
She was pregnant at the time, wasn't she?
Yeah, with Henry, my youngest. Yeah. She was 3 months pregnant, yeah.
And like any good family would, when you're in the hospital, they were trying to keep you away from the newspapers. Yeah. But I heard you were trying to slip some through with the nurses so that you could keep working. Is that right?
No. Well, let's be honest about it. You get shot, everybody's got the worst opinion of why it happened and so forth. And some of the newspapers who I sued successfully were coming up with all sort of theories, and they were, it's pretty awful. And the problem is, especially if it's a Sunday newspaper, it's in the newspaper on a Sunday, but you don't. It's over a week before you can get any apology or whatever. And I successfully, we got that, did that and sorted that out. But the damage was done. And London Arena at the time, the interest rate was about 16%, and we were paying 3-4% over base on loans. And that was the economy was dreadful. Well, the interest rate was dreadful. We were hitting all our targets, but it was quite expensive. What had happened there is that prior to the arena opening, there'd been the Hillsborough disaster, and they brought in new safety legislation, so we had to change all the seating. There's all sorts of things going on, and I sort of basically put a lot of our money into it, our family money into it, and then guaranteed a lot of money. And I'd done a deal with the banks, which was a really good deal. They were going to take a group of banks were going to take 49% of stake in the arena, which would have really, made its future solid and everything, and basically swapping debt for equity. And it was a brilliant deal. But once I got shot, and it was 10 days before we were signing off on it, everything was agreed. Once I got shot, that killed it. And then I had to discharge myself from hospital because there was so much negativity to try and get it all back and get it up and going. And I was back in, I was out of hospital, I think it was about 10 days later, or it might have been less than that. I'd lost a lot of weight, and I went back to work.
Now, I heard you say before that you never actually first wanted to stay in boxing, that you were kind of interested in pursuing music. Had you not been shot, do you think you would have transitioned out of boxing and gone fully into music?
I may have kept an interest in it. I'm sure I would have kept an interest, but I did like boxing. And I felt I'd really, I can't say it's gone as far as I, at that time, has done really well. But I felt that I was moving in a different direction. The arena we owned, I'm not sure at the time, it's about just under 10 acres of land in Docklands. It was and I got consents to build four office blocks as well on each corner of the arena had we wanted to do so.
Well, I want to finish by asking about the one and only Tyson Fury. He's such a personality, and obviously we see that side of him with the cameras on and the amazing one-liners at the press conferences and whatnot. But what is it like to manage a man like Tyson Fury and promote a man like Tyson Fury?
Well, I don't manage him, but
Promote him.
But promote him. It's a joy. I mean, he's fun. He's very clever. He's articulate. He's very underestimated by people. Underestimate him, but he's a very smart operator, and he can fight. He's a quality fighter. He can fight. He's done everything that's been asked of him. Not done it the easy way, and like a lot of people, he's had his ups and downs in life. He won a world title in Germany, which was the adopted home of Klitschko, 54,000 people, and gave Klitschko a boxing lesson. And he was a massive underdog when he went out there, came back with the belt, and then his life just went off the rails. Boozing, drugs, a few things that were said, which were some were taken out of context, some were stupid remarks, or maybe off the cuff, I don't know what they were. And then he came back, came with me after, attempting suicide or having serious suicidal thoughts. Came back, he must have been about a good 11 stone, which is like the equivalent of having a Ricky Hatton on you. Had to lose that weight. Yeah. Had a couple of comeback fights. When he was going to have 4, he had 2. And then we made that match with Wilder. Again, he goes into the other guy's backyard. Unfancied, totally unfancied, against a guy who'd been champion for 6 years. He'd already beaten the best fighter of his generation in Klitschko. Now he's fighting a guy, best knockout record of any heavyweight in the last 50 odd years. Sorry, in the last 50 odd years. And he won that fight. Dramatic fight, dramatic ending. He won that fight, went into that fight, and they gave it a draw. It was never a draw in a million years. But got the rematch and went out the second fight and absolutely done a job on him. And then they had a third match, which for me was the best heavyweight fight I've ever attended. He just was superb. He was absolutely superb what he did. I mean, it was just an exciting fight. He went on the floor again. He shows the heart he's got, the boxing brain he's got, and came through. And he's just, for me, he's a phenomenal athlete in as much that you look at him and he doesn't look like an athlete. He's not carved out of marble. He doesn't look one of those, but he's got more stamina. He's got more brain power than most of these heavyweights out there. Better ability, and he's been phenomenal. He's done brilliantly, and he's now coming up to again to fight what a lot of people feel is the best heavyweight around in Alexander Usyk. Usyk is an Olympic gold medalist, cruiserweight unified. I think he unified all the titles, didn't he? Cruiserweight.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think he did. But anyway, undefeated. Yeah. Got up to heavyweight, undefeated. Beat our hero AJ twice. So you've got 2 undefeated heavyweights in there. So here he is now, showing that he, in the fight that I believe he's the best heavyweight of his generation, which will absolutely cement his legacy of being the best heavyweight of his generation.
Well, my final question before I let you go is, where does that Fury-Usyk fight rank in all of the fights you have put on?
It's the biggest fight of the 21st century. There's no doubt about that. 4 belts on the line. So it's certainly the biggest fight this century that I've been involved with. And it probably will be the biggest out of all of them because of what's at stake. I mean, it's the division, the blue ribbon division. It's for them, probably whoever wins is going to be one of the most famous sportsmen in the world. As always, the heavyweight champion is. Yeah. So I think it'll probably be the biggest.
Well, I can't wait for it. Thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure,
really
Charlotte.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.